All right, let's talk about the top 3 most common swing flaws that I see in golf. The number one is what you guys just saw, the over-the-top swing. It's by far the most common thing in golf. People have talked about it forever, and I see it all the time too. Now, there's different degrees of over the top. Some players are going to come just barely over the top like this and come a little bit across it. Other people are going to fully have that club come way in front of them. They're going to swipe hard across the golf ball. Well, the number one thing to understanding about coming over the top is that you have an open club face. Maybe not immediately during your swing, but at some point, and especially the more you're getting your impact, the more your club face is getting open. I'm going to talk about this from a couple different perspectives, but think about it like this. For reference, a range of a square club face most people would agree upon is in the downswing, having this club face be straight up and down, or having it be pointed slightly down towards the ground, so that leading edge is square to our spine or our back line. Somewhere in that range would be reasonably square. There's some great players with it more open, some with it slightly more closed, but roughly in that range. Well, watch what happens. If I get this club on plane in the downswing, so it's pointed in line with where my body is aimed over here, watch what happens is this club gets more shallow, more to the inside. Naturally, that face gets more open and it's going to be more to the right. You'll see a lot of players with a very closed club face drop this club more behind them because it starts shoving the face more open, so they have a chance of getting this ball back on line and squaring up their club face. Well, the opposite thing starts to happen as we get more over the top. Again, watch this club face. Watch what happens is the club kicks more in front of me, more steep and over the top. The face starts hooding more down to the ground and pointing to the left. Well, it's a chicken or the egg. Did you have an open club face that makes you come over the top? Did you come over the top and develop an open club face? Whatever the root cause was, if I start coming over the top, I want my face to be more open so it can be square by impact. Or if my face is open, which is, in my opinion, probably more likely, if my face is more open, I want to start kicking this club over the top, because that is my mechanism, if you're watching the face, to start squaring it up so my ball has a chance of getting online. So again, one way or another, your face is getting open during your swing. Maybe you had it open at a dress like this. Maybe you have a very weak grip, which makes it very easy to have the face open. Maybe you have a lot of cupping or extension in your wrists. Maybe you just don't rotate your arms towards the target at all, and you have a giant chicken wing coming through, and that holds the face open. Whatever it might be, your face is getting open at some point during your swing, and your body has learned to start kicking that club over the top, because that is your mechanism to square it up. So again, whatever the root cause, understand the over the top swing is one of the most common things I see in golf. It might even apply to you. And if that's the case, work on closing down your club face. The place I always start is doing the flex flip drill. Shout out George Gankis, he's the one who showed me this drill. I'm going to give you the short version of it because it would take a long time to do it. But basically, what you would do is you'd take an alignment stick, just like we have here. You would match the angle of your shaft, you'd put it in the ground about 2 to 3 feet behind you and slightly to the outside, and this would give you a barrier that you're trying to swing underneath in the downswing. You're trying to make sure this club is coming underneath this stick in the downswing. Even if your swing is not perfect, it gets extreme in the opposite direction, make sure we're not hitting the stick or coming over it. Make sure we're dropping it underneath this stick so we can swing more in to out to the right. We're intentionally trying to hit a huge push, and we're also trying to make the ball hook. Again, just because we're trying to create the opposite problem, then we can kind of meet somewhere in the middle afterwards. You've already learned the over the top, let's learn to get under plane. Then after that, we can kind of blend them together and get back on plane. The other part of that drill, because again, it comes back to the club face, is he will have players bow or flex their lead wrist, because that will get the face more closed, and he will have them rotate their arms towards the target, start closing down the club face, and that will teach you to hit a big giant hook, because again, you're learning the opposite skill. Then again, you can kind of tone it down and meet back in the middle. There's also a stick that would go on the forward side where, again, it's going to match your shaft of address, 2 to 3 feet in front of you, about 6 to 8 inches to the inside, and you would swing over this stick. So you'd swing on the stick behind us, you would swing underneath it, the one in front over here, you would swing over it, you wouldn't come crashing into it, and that's going to shift your face, that's going to shift your path, and that's basically just going to start training, again, the opposite problem. That way you can kind of marry somewhere in the middle afterwards. Now again, you have many solutions. You could just hood the face of the dress, you could have a stronger grip, you could work on your release like we talked about. Whatever one you want to do, always start with the club face, then you can start to shift your path and your release and all that other stuff once your face starts getting back more in the closed direction. The number 2 thing I see in terms of common swing flaws is players don't turn in the backswing. And it's not that they're not trying, it's just that they don't understand their lower body plays a huge factor on how much the upper body can turn. So many players come in for a lesson, they go to the top of their backswing and they look like this. Their hips are dead still, their knees are dead still, they're trying to turn their chest as best they can, but their arms are just doing all the work. When just the arms swing back, watch what happens. Either my arms are going to lift up, or more commonly, the arms get very narrow and my right arm chicken wings behind me in this direction. Why does that happen? Because my arms, if you watch right set up, my left arm is straight. My left arm can only spread so far back and stay straight before my arm runs into my body. Once it runs into my body, it can't go any further unless it starts bending in this direction. Well, the only way my right arm can accommodate all that extra bend is it has to start bending too, and it wants to start flying behind me. This is called internal rotation or chicken wing. That's the only way I can make my arms travel that far back in the swing if I'm not turning. But if we turn, guess what we can do? Look how far this club traveled. See how it's at this angle? Well, if I turn my body, I can keep my arms more in front and get that same length of backswing, and now I don't have to get all stuck with my arms. I don't move into a chicken wing. I can start to fix those things if I turn my body. But again, people will come in there, I'll tell them, hey, we got to work on turning more. And they'll say, it's as far as I can turn. I'm like, well, yeah, it's as far as I could turn too. If I never turn my lower body, if I just turn my chest back, that's as much as I got too. I can only twist against myself so far. But if I allow my lower body to turn, watch what happens. I could turn way more with my upper body, like 70 degrees more, because I'm allowing my hips to turn, depending on how much I let my hips turn. And again, people will stay very still. They'll keep their knees very bent, they'll keep their hips very still, and it's all chest rotation, and it's no wonder they can't turn, because again, we can only stretch so far. But if instead, we let our left knee release in. You notice the stick is in the middle of my stance here. I let my left knee release towards that stick. Now it doesn't have to go crazy, but I let it release in a little bit. That's gonna free up my hips to turn more. I let my right leg extend back and I let my left knee flex forward. That exchange allows my hips to turn. As soon as I do those 3 things and I have the intent to turn my hips, all of a sudden now I can make a way bigger turn, which is way more power, but also now my arms don't have to do all the work. Now I can let my body do the work and I can start to fix my arms. Because if I just try and fix my arms without turning, well, this isn't much of a backswing. It might be in a good position, but I'm gonna hit it 50 yards, right? So to create any type of power, I either need to do all arms or I need to start turning my body, and that will let me maintain my width, keep my arm in front of me, not chicken wing, all that stuff. So those are all common things that happen, but it's the vast majority of the time started by not turning. Now, once you learn to turn, you're probably still gonna have these old habits. You're gonna have to learn to fix those habits as well if you don't like those parts of your swing. But the root cause was not turning, and your body just responded, hey, I wanna create power, so I better let my arms go back. Because again, we wanna hit it out of our shadow if we wanna play golf. It's hard to hit it 50 yards and be effective. So that's the second most common thing I see. And then the third most common thing, which is a little bit backwards, but honestly, it's the most common lesson I give, especially for players who only get out and play once a week, once a month, 4 or 5 times a year. Players don't understand, or they don't put enough intention to space on the fundamentals. When I say the fundamentals, I've talked about it many times before, but fundamentals are not our grip, it is not posture, it is not alignment, because there's players in the Hall of Fame who have a strong grip, some have a weak grip, many have a neutral. Again, something is not a fundamental if it's changing all across the board. What are fundamentals is the ability to control our low point. That's a fancy term for saying, when are we hitting the golf ball relative to where this club is hitting the ground? We want this club to get completely underneath the golf ball and then interact with the ground soon after that, because we want to get underneath it so the ball can get up in the air, but we don't want to get underneath it too soon, because that means we're hitting the ball fat. And if we never get underneath it, well, now we're thinning it, now we're topping it, and obviously that's not good. So we want to get completely underneath it in order to get the ball in the air, and we want to do that without hitting it fat. So just by understanding that we're trying to hit down on the golf ball because it gives us a chance of working underneath it, and understanding if this line represents the middle of my golf ball, we're trying to hit the ground on the front part of this stick, not behind the stick. Just that sheer intent alone, if you give somebody 100 golf balls and they just draw a line on the ground like they would in the sand learning a bunker shot, if they were to draw a line on the ground, they try and hit the ground every time and they try and hit in front of the line, they just start to get a little bit better with their contact. You give them 2 weeks of practice doing that, all of a sudden they start to hit significantly less fat shots and significantly less top shots, all just by having some understanding and by paying attention to what their intention is. Their intention now is to hit the ground and hit in front of the golf ball, whereas beforehand they didn't even know that was the goal. Just by doing that, their body starts to react. They can kind of be athletic about it, and they can start to make solid contact and hit less fat and thin shots, which is important because then you can get to the next set of fundamentals, which is your face and your path. Because if you're thinning it, you're topping it, and you're hitting it fat, well, this ball is never getting up in the air. If my ball is always going like this, how am I going to judge where my club face is? The ball never got up in the air to tell me if my path was off or my face was off. So once the ball gets up in the air, we can see if that ball is going to the right or if it's going to the left. That's going to help tell us where our face and path is. If the ball immediately starts flying to the right, we know our face is getting very open at impact. If the ball immediately starts pulling to the left, we are players getting our face very close at impact. And if our ball starts flying somewhat on target, we're probably having our face be somewhat square by impact, or at least it's not dramatically far off. Now, if the ball is slicing, it has that left to right curve to it as a righty golfer, well, then we know our path is cutting across it. And if it has a lot of hook to it, our path is in to out relative to our face, and we know that that's the direction we're swinging on, again, relative to this face. But it lets us, again, keep it very simple. We can say, hey, you know, I'm that player who always slices it. Just like the over-the-top golfer we talked about. That is the player who always slices it. Well, what are you going to do? You got to start playing the game of Goldilocks. You got to do the opposite. If you're the slicer who has that open club face in this direction and you're wiping across it, you got to work on doing the opposite. You got to go do that flex flip drill where we close down the face and we swing into out, and you learn to hit a hook. Once you learn to hit a hook, you just go back and forth. You now have the new skill of hitting a hook, and then you have your natural open the face over the top swing, and you just go back and forth. Let me hit a slice, let me hit a hook, let me hit a slice again, let me hit a hook again, but over time, try and make your curvature less. Try and hit a little bit less of a slice, a little bit less of a hook, until eventually you kind of work into the middle, and now you've learned the straight shot. It's going to give you a decent technique, maybe not a perfect technique, but you'll have a lot of neutral elements in your swing because you need them in order to hit a straight shot. So again, by having an understanding of what the fundamentals are and by paying attention to how the ball is flying, you can tell yourself, okay, I'm just going to do the opposite for a while until I learn to kind of balance things out, and now my technique starts to get better, but it's a little bit more natural. If you're just trying to focus on swinging into out and flipping the face, that's a lot less technical than trying to get into some perfect position with your golf swing. Those tend to be a little bit more tough because we're living so much inside of our own head rather than just moving to a general pattern. And then the other fundamentals are contact and speed or distance control, which means, you know, if you get your low point, your face, and your path correct, you're probably going to make pretty decent contact. And from there, you're trying to control how long am I swinging, how fast am I swinging, understanding how far your clubs travel. That way you can control your distance getting out there. Those are almost, I would say, probably 80% of lessons I give. If players are shooting around 90 or above, I'm almost always starting with that. First, the education of what that is, but then just saying, hey, you know, you hit a lot of fat shots, let's focus on our low point. You know, you're a big slicer of the golf ball. If we could first learn to hit a draw, then we can iron out the details to your technique afterwards, but we got to just shift this pattern around. There's no perfect position to your golf swing that's going to do it. You just got to learn to do some of the opposite, and things are going to start to change in your swing. So that would be probably the most significant lesson I could ever give in golf, is to understand what the fundamentals are, understand what side of the street you're on, whether you're on the cold porch side or the hot porch side. And then once you understand that, put your attention to doing the opposite, and then just learn to balance that equation, and you'll be way better off for it. So I know that's kind of a roundabout answer, but those would be my top 3 common mistakes I see in golf. It's definitely the top 3 things I'm always trying to fix during a lesson. Again, especially as you get to more like a 10, 15, 20 handicap. It's only when players start to get down to like a 15, 10, or a 5 or even better, are we really focusing on perfecting their posture and balance, making sure they have ideal alignment for where they're trying to hit their shot shape, trying to get into a nice arm structure, trying to focusing on shallowing, stuff like that. Those are kind of tools to move your fundamentals around. But again, you can just do so much more in a general sense if you understand where you're going and trying to do the opposite. And then once you have learned that skill and you can do both, and you have the cold, the hot, and the neutral, then that's when you start focusing more on specific technique and specific positions, because now it starts to apply to you.